Crowns are about to announce wildcat strike action in response to Bill 203. I wonder your reaction to that.
It's the first I'm hearing of it, but as I've always said, I encourage all Nova Scotians to follow the law.
On Friday at Law Amendments, we heard from a constitutional expert who predicted that there's no way 203 would stand up, and he questioned whether or not you actually have a written legal decision saying that the bill is charter compliant. Do you have such a written decision?
I actually listened to Law Amendments, I listened to all the presenters. We're very confident that our bill will stand up.
Do you have a written legal opinion that says it's charter compliant?
We're very confident that our bill will stand up.
Is that a no or a yes, Premier?
I'm very confident that our bill will stand up.
Do you have a plan to deal with the wildcat strike? Surely this is not something that's out of the blue. You must have contemplated this.
No, it's the first I've heard of it. I expect, but I'm sure it'll be a conversation today.
Premier, I wonder what you make, based on having listened to Law Amendments, Mr. Larkin's comments saying that your fears that the Crowns could set a pattern are unfounded, given that 100 people can't set a pattern for 75,000.
I actually thought his testimony was constructive. I disagree with that component. As you know, we have lawyers in our own department now that are being associated with. They're certainly going to want 17% of Crowns are getting it. So we have legal aid lawyers in the province who are going to want 17% of Crowns getting 17%. The idea that he's suggesting they can't set the pattern is just simply we don't agree with. We've seen every time that a new unit, a new agreement has been set on, it's a new floor. And he knows that. He's been doing that. He's been doing collective bargaining work for a long time. So
if that's the case, why would he show up and misrepresent the situation to Law Amendments?
That's a better question for him. We just disagree on the fundamental piece of it. The reality of it is we've seen that time and time again. Don't take my word for it. Go back and look at the history of when one agreement gets set, it becomes the new floor. They start building on it. We are believe that 17% increase is too much.
Premier, Mr. Larkin said he was involved in 3 of the 4 boards that actually set salaries for Crowns since 2000. He said in none of those cases did they actually set a pattern. Is that incorrect, or have you been told that they have in the past set patterns?
No, what I've said is every time we do an agreement, doesn't matter whether it's with 100 people or quite frankly 10,000, that's the new floor. The next group that comes in uses that as their base. That's not something new. Mr. Larkin knows that, but we also have other groups of lawyers. Is he suggesting only the Crowns deserve 17%? He doesn't. Is he suggesting that paramedics don't deserve the same amount, 17%? What is he suggesting?
He's suggesting that Crowns can't set a pattern, sir.
Well, I disagree with him. That's the issue. So fundamentally, I appreciate his position. As you might have noticed in the last 6 years, we haven't always agreed when it came to how do we set an affordable wage pattern, the one that taxpayers can pay. That's the reality for us. 17%. Is what we're talking about, and it's too high.
So you disagree with that basic premise? In what way was his testimony constructive?
When I listened to him walk his way through that, he talked about a whole number of aspects associated with it. Doesn't mean that I agreed with what he was saying. The fact of the matter is, he came in and he laid out what he thought was a thoughtful conversation. I respect his position.
Premier, in the event of a strike, either a wildcat strike this week or a legal strike in November, are you prepared to see cases thrown out of court that don't meet the Supreme Court of Canada timeline? Are you prepared to see people walk away from charges?
We have an essential service component to this bill. We believe we can arrive at a point that ensures that those cases will meet what we believe is the Jordan test, and we will continue to seek out to ensure that we have other ways to ensure that justice is delivered.
Mr. Hirshhorn on Friday expressed a concern that this bill will drive Crowns out of this province and make it prohibitively difficult to recruit Crowns to come here. Do you share that concern?
Not at all.
Why?
This bill is next door to New Brunswick. Crowns aren't leaving and they're paid less. We're paying them more in this province than anyone else in Atlantic Canada. No one, when we put a posting out, people apply for it. That is just simply, I don't support that position at all for Mr. Hirshhorn, and I certainly don't support a 17% pay raise as he does.
What do you think of Mr. Hirshhorn coming here on Friday? He's a deputy level head, deputy minister level civil servant. What did you make of him coming here and speaking out against the government bill?
That's certainly with his right to come and do it. He exercised his right.
Premier, given that several of your approaches to contracts are leading us through protracted and what will be very expensive court processes, Why wouldn't it make sense for the government to table the legal advice it has that this one won't end up in that same situation?
I'm not saying that we won't end up having to defend this case. What I'm telling you is I believe this will hold up. That's like all of the other pieces of legislation that we've had to defend. That'll be determined by whether or not the labor union wants to take us there or not.
Right. Respectfully, though, you're not a lawyer, and so wouldn't it make sense to show the public on what basis the government has formed its opinion?
Respectfully, we have lots of people who give advice to government. We base legislation surrounding that, and we look forward to this one going through the House.
Your thoughts on the federal election?
Listen, it was obviously a night that tells you the volatility of the electorate. Pleased to see that 10 of the Liberal MPs get re-elected here in the province. I know the newly elected Conservative MP obviously has been in the House. We get elected together, and I look forward to working with all of them to best deliver on the priorities of their constituents.
Expert legal opinions were laid bare, counter to your arguments on Friday. Why can't we see what you say are legal opinions that support the Bill 203?
We have a bill that is before the House, like all pieces of legislation that we put through. We're confident that bill will stand up, and if required to defend it, we will.
If you're confident, why not show the public the opinion?
Because quite frankly, it's like all pieces of legislation that we have. We go through the process of building it, and we have to defend that, we will.
But this is a piece of legislation that risks putting the justice system into chaos as Crown's prepare to walk off the job tomorrow. Shouldn't the public get more than just the good faith, we believe we're okay?
No, quite frankly, I believe the public recognizes we can't afford a 17% pay raise. That's exactly what Nova Scotians have been telling me when I've been out in my constituency this weekend. Fact of the matter is the highest paid Crowns in Atlantic Canada, and they want a 17% pay raise. There's many of my constituents who would be happy with a 7%, which they're not getting. The reality of it is a 17% pay raise is just not sustainable, and Nova Scotians recognize that.
So, Premier, are you saying that we'll only see the full defense of Bill 203 if this goes to court?
I believe we'll be able to move forward, but we've labeled a piece of legislation that's there for everyone to see and read, and everyone will make their assessment on it, and the Labour movement will determine what they're going to do.
What's your
Last
message?
question, there's only one riding that didn't stay Liberal this time around.
Pardon?
What do you think it says that there's only one riding that didn't stay Liberal?
Listen, I think, quite frankly, the Prime Minister is running a government that's been supportive of the region. We as a province have seen growth in our capital expenditures through this government that's been positive, whether it's highways or infrastructure. We've seen a huge number in our immigration numbers been supported by them. So that's, I think Nova Scotians recognize that. Thank you very much.